Hi, I'm Dave.
And it's Tom here.
And today we're taking a look at Dragon's Dogma on the PC and comparing it with the PlayStation 3 version.
Yeah, so this has been a long time in the running, hasn't it? It's been a few years since Dragon's Dogma first came out, and Capcom finally decided now's the time to bring out the PC release. What does it bring exactly to the table?
Well, basically what we're looking at here with the PC game is pretty much like a full HD remastering. So we've got an upgrade to 1080p resolution, or well, you can, as it's on the PC, you can actually select your resolution, so you can go higher than that or lower depending on what performance you want to obtain on your individual
setup. So that's standard PC stuff.
Standard PC stuff.
Higher resolutions, but is there anything in the way of better settings?
There is. Basically, the big changes here come with the improvement of the artwork. So you've got higher resolution textures across characters and scenery.
So that's pretty substantial. That's quite exciting to hear.
It is.
If you're a fan of the game, maybe they preserve some of these textures for when they first made the game for an eventual PC release, so we're finally getting them.
Yeah, definitely, and as you can see here, it's like there's a big upgrade. There's a lot more fine details on sort of the characters and on like the game's creatures, especially on the close-up shots. The other big improvement we also get is with anti-aliasing quality. So on PS3, even though you're looking at native 720p image with 1:1 pixel map, the post-process AA is actually really quite blurry, so texture details get smoothed over. But on PC, we've got FXAA 3 HQ running, and you're getting really good coverage, but no texture blur.
That's interesting because isn't this based on NT framework?
It is, yes.
Yes, so the Resident Evil 0 remaster also has a basis in NT framework, and they, for the PC version of this, have FXAA 3 and HQ as well, so maybe it's an engine thing. But yes, what else has PC got on Dragon's Dogma? Is it just the textures? I see shadows are also quite noticeably affected here.
Yeah, I mean, basic shadows are running at a much higher resolution, so they not only do they look a lot cleaner, but they're very sharp, so you can get really small objects perfectly cast. You can actually make out the individual shapes a lot clearer, whereas on PS3 there's a lot of breakup.
Right, so there's a lot of jagged edges along long lines, like from geometry.
Yeah.
And of course this game uses a dynamic time of day, so a lot of these shadows are properly cast by the...
They are, yeah, it's all real-time lighting, time of day, so all the shadows constantly creep across the environment, so this is all basically being done on the fly by the MT Framework engine.
It is very noticeable how big the upgrade in just image quality is moving to this PC release.
Yeah, this scene here coming up, we get to see the improvement in streaming and draw distance. So as you can see, when the PlayStation version is streaming in, there's various objects that come in like as a vivid fade.
Okay, so it's sort of a speckled version of the object, then it comes into full form.
Indeed,
sort of
yes.
fills out.
Whereas on the PC, all these objects like the rocks to the right there are all basically already rendered on screen. The view distance is a lot further, and as you can see here, when he's running towards the town, all of the detailed scenery is already present on PC, whereas on PlayStation 3 it hasn't loaded yet. Well, it's just beginning to load now, so that's probably one of the biggest differences, because you're actually seeing more detail on screen than on console, simply because the high quality assets are only displayed up close on PlayStation, whereas on PC they can afford to display it from much further distances. The only other sort of big differences that we see is high precision Hdr Lighting Effects.
Oh, so that's actually a brand new effect. Is that toggleable in the menu? Can you change that?
There is a high and low option. The low option is basically the same as the PlayStation 3 game, and the higher quality version basically means you don't get crushed to details in bright scenes.
So it's very approximated on PS3.
Yes, definitely.
And that's interesting. I think the lighting is hard to tell in these comparisons sometimes because we've got a variable time of day, but yeah, certainly there is a difference in hue across all these captures. I've noticed it's quite a big difference in some cases.
Yeah, the time of day is the main thing here, just because even if you're just a few minutes out, it can dramatically change between scenes. I mean, you can just walk across the environment and back again, like in a little town, and suddenly you've lost, quite a few hours in the game.
It's the bane of our work at Digital Foundry. Dynamic time of day. Anyway, so I guess we can press on.
Frame rate test, yeah. So let's have a look at what kind of performance we get on the PC.
So you tried 3 different configurations here. We've got our budget rig overclocked. So did you try the 750 Ti with no overclock?
No, I decided to go straight in overclock to try and match the performance profile that you'd get on a PlayStation 4. So we're adding 200 MHz on the core clock, and we're giving memory a 400 MHz boost as well.
So the idea is we'd have a 30 on PS3, obviously.
Yes, we have a 30 on PS3.
So this is the first time we're ever getting it at 60. And right away you can see even overclocked the 750 Ti is not really holding up, is it?
No, like a lot of the problems are alpha transparencies and bandwidth heavy scenes. That's where the 750 Ti overclocked really struggles.
Right.
If we look at scenes where there's not so much going on, then it's mostly a perfect 60, but it does struggle whenever there's long draw distances and alpha effects. That's the
usual culprits then.
Yeah, definitely. Once we move up to 960, we find that the alpha effects no longer impact performance. There's enough GPU time there to render them without lowering below 60 frames.
So it sounds like a memory bandwidth issue on the 750 Ti. It is something that's alleviated with the GTX 960 though, isn't it, and above, but you have to pay a good chunk more money for those cards.
Yeah, I think there's a good like £50-60 extra when you're moving up to a 960, I think, at least.
And even then, it's still dropping, I think, on long draw distances.
Yeah, I think for what I found, it was the distance scaling setting that affected performance the most. I'm guessing MT framework isn't really designed for open world games, and there's something within the streaming system that might be causing problems. But if you drop down distance scaling to the next setting down, then you get a pretty much constant 60 frames per second.
And do you really notice the difference between that and the top setting?
There's not a huge amount. You notice a bit more shadow, you notice a bit more like LOD pop in the distance, but it's nowhere near the same scale as on PlayStation 3. So you're still getting
all the benefits of higher
you're getting the
draw
high
distance.
quality sort of details. It's just that at the far sort of reaches on the horizon, you get to see the changes, but you're no longer looking at really obvious pop-ups. So it's still a big improvement on the PlayStation, over the PS3 version.
So the last thing I've got to ask, what do you reckon then? Is this a premonition of what's to come for PS4, Xbox One versions? They're not out yet, are they? So this is maybe a look at what we could have.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, looking at the performance on the PC, I think that the 750 Ti version perhaps represents what we could be looking at.
So a 60 with drops and improved textures, shadows,
improved textures, shadows. I think it's a good representation, the PC version as a whole, of what to expect from a proper remaster on current gen releases. It kind of falls into line with what you'd want. They've changed the key areas like the artwork. Some of the effects are the same, but for the most part, the things you're going to notice have been improved. And it's beneficial, it's a better experience. There's no...
As a result of that?
Yeah, definitely. If they can keep close to 60 frames, then... Yeah, no...
They're golden.
Exactly, yeah. It's going to be a lot more fun to play, and a big improvement that's worth picking up if you're a fan of the game, so...
Right, well, I think that about covers everything. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, leave us a like below, and until next time, thanks for watching.
Indeed. See you next time.